maybe it is now. There we go. Well, look, I've got two jobs here today. One is to introduce these people to you, and the other is to put this in a little bit of context, and then as we get to some questions and ideas. Katie, you've now seen her work, and it speaks for itself, a magnificent film and a truly important document that we are incredibly glad to have nailed down and ready to go. Thank you so much for a great gift. Rogetto Zane, one of the people I love in this movement, and we've gotten to do a lot of work together over the last while, and you've gotten a sense of her spirit. The movie doesn't show all her beautiful family and the vessel project that she has built in Louisiana, which is a thing of great beauty, and you should go check it out online to understand it. We'll talk a little bit about more later, but among other things, just to kind of bring the circle whole, Lake Charles, where she comes from, is, among other things, was known for a while as the blue tarp capital of the universe. It got hit by one hurricane after another to the point where nobody left around to replace the roofs. They were just putting up blue tarps. That's this cycle that we're talking about as we heat the planet and on and on. Jane Fonda, look, it's been very good for me to be reminded by these last few days that she's a movie star. And she really is, one of the greatest actors of the late 20th and early 21st century. I forget it sometimes because for decades of my life, she's just been my absolute fantastic activist colleague who answers email the second that I write it to her, and vice versa, and always shows up. I was thinking a lot about her this week because, of course, her friend Dolly Parton passed, and they're in many ways occupy a similar place in American history, in that both of them have taken their transcendent gifts, one for music, one for acting, and used those to have an extraordinary effect on the larger world around them. And so what a pleasure to have all of you in Middlebury. I want to set this in context for Middlebury a little bit for you guys in ways that are both good and hard. Just to kind of ground this conversation in real reality. This fight against LNG and natural gas, fracked gas of all kinds, the last 3/4 of this movie concentrated very hard on its effect on people's bodies and communities. But there's also, as you saw at the beginning, the very deep question of its effect on the larger world. When you saw those cameras showing methane spewing into the atmosphere, a molecule of methane, CH4, traps 80 times as much heat molecule for molecule as a molecule of CO2, carbon dioxide, the thing that we're all used to thinking about. Which is why the larger environmental movement across the country has joined to try and do something about this. One story that doesn't get told just because it's in some ways an unhappy one is what happened in Rogetto. Remember this really well in the fall of 2023 when we came together across the country to try and put an end to the expansion of these LNG export terminals. And Third Act, which many of you were a part of, was at much of the forefront of this work as we organized to press the Biden administration that fall to put a pause, a moratorium on the expansion, stopping the construction, among other things, of CP2. And Rogetto, there are people in this room. As you'll recall, we had 800 people from Third Act pledged to go to Washington in January of 2024 to do civil disobedience at the Department of Energy, and with 2 weeks to go, that, among other things, convinced the Biden administration that the time had come to put the kibosh on that expansion. And it was a huge victory, but there were people in this room ready to go to jail. And I remember writing you that afternoon, just saying, congratulations, we've won. At least some of these plants aren't going to get built. And of course, that pleasure lasted for 8 months until Donald Trump was elected. And on day one of the Trump administration, he revoked that Biden thing. And now CP2 is on its way up. And just as a reminder, when it floods in Vermont, when glaciers collapse in Nepal, that's what's making that happen, okay? So let's be very clear that this is a global as well as a local story. That's the good context. The hard context for all of us here is that, for instance, a few weeks ago, the Middlebury Town Board decided that it was going to use fracked gas to dry out the sewage at the sewage treatment plant for the next 20 or 30 years instead of spending a little more money for electricity. In neighboring communities, people have come together to block solar farms because they didn't want to look at them, okay? So we are deeply complicit in all of this too, in blocking the change that we need if we're going to do something about this. So, Rosetta, you've had a lot of experience now going abroad, going to New York, going to Washington, going to Hollywood, going to wherever. Talk about what solidarity means, about people working together a little bit, because I think that's pretty crucial here.
Good evening, everyone. How are y'all doing? I know some of you may be a little tired, a little sleepy. It's been a long day. It's kind of dreary outside. The sun isn't shining really bright. But I want to invite you all to take a deep breath because that was heavy. And I know we ended it heavy as well. It didn't end like cheerful glee. There's this big win. We won. It's over. And that was intentional because it's not over. The whole film was intentional. It was intentional to show that this is not impacting one person, one community, in one place, that it's impacting several people across the country, not just even in the United States, across the water, across the world, people who don't look alike, people who don't have the same religion. There are some communities of people that were on there that I, as a Black woman, would never go to their community, but they were out there in the streets marching with us. So this film showed that how when people come together, that is how we eventually get to a win. And that is very important because for so long, the oil and gas industry has bullied us into believing that we were powerless, that if we fought against them, that we would be blackballed, that we would lose our homes, that we would lose our jobs, you know, that they wouldn't hire people from our community, that our kids, you know, would be threatened. It was all kind of things that we've heard. We've received mailers in our mailbox to say, you better not go to that hearing, you better not show up here. We've been followed in the streets. We've been called names from the N word to the B word to everything in between. I've been called racist because I talk about how Black communities are overburdened with these issues. All of these things have happened. But the importance of this film shows that even with that and with them making us think that we can't win, that we can win and we can come together and we can fight together. We've had some joyous moments in this fight. We've had some wins in this fight. But unfortunately, those wins have been few and far between because of the current administration, but also because of people not believing they're impacted by what's happening in our community. This film does a really good job of showing that it's impacting everybody. But just as Bill said, it's even impacting communities where the fossil fuel industry may not be visible. Because the water in my community that's poisoned, where does it go? How does the water cycle work? When water evaporates, where does it then go? We heard the Carrizo Como Crudo tribe, one, speaking about our ancestors going back to the water, our bodies going back to the water. Where does that water go? The rain that was raining on you today may very well have been rain that started in Louisiana. We don't know where those clouds are moving and how that water is moving, how those bodies of water are connected. Why is it flooding more in Vermont? Why is it that a hurricane that starts in Louisiana on the Gulf Coast impacts more people in New York City? What is happening? What happens when we lose all of our wetlands and we lose our fishing industry and our crabs and our shrimp? Because 70% of the seafood that we consume comes from the Gulf Coast. So if you like shrimp and crab and crawfish and oysters, if it's impacted, it's impacting you. But even if that's not important enough that you're impacted now, what are we leaving for our children and grandchildren? What will this world look like for them? I know I look like I'm 20 years old, but I have a grandbaby. And my little grandbaby is 3 years old. And if you would have been able to see all 500 hours of film that Greenpeace had, you would have saw my grandbaby being pushed in a stroller in some of the filming. You would have seen my little 8-year-old, he's 8 now, I think he was 4 or 5 at the time. You would have seen him marching in the front of that parade that we were in. What are we leaving for them? This is what solidarity means. It means that even if you can't see a flare when you look out of your window, that you're going to that gaslitdoc.com and you're finding those organizations and people who are fighting and you're asking, how can I help? Because it's important that they see people coming together. And finally, I'll say to that, one of the things that one of the FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. One of the things that one of them said to me, and they're lawyers, they are very educated lawyers who work for FERC. And it's one of those agencies that a lot of us don't know about, whenever we're learning about the different, parts of government and the different regulatory agencies, because of course Third Act knows, they've camped in front of FERC before. But one of those commissioners said to me, Rashetta, it's the law. We can't just not approve it because it's the law. And nothing is gonna change the law until something major happens. Well, you all just saw a film where we were all in different towns, in different states, saying the exact same thing. You almost could have put our commentary on top of each other. There was no script. We did not have anything in front of us. We did not talk to each other before. I didn't know when Jane was in Brownsville. They didn't know when she was in Lake Charles. But we all said the same thing. We all talked about the flaring. We all talked about, what it means. Why is there an explosion? We all talked about family members dying with cancer. That is a major thing that's happened. What do they mean it's not gonna change until something major happens? Something major is happening. But what they need to see even major is people coming together in solidarity saying no. No, we will not accept this. No, we will not use frack gas to fix a problem here when we could just spend a little more money to, use electricity. No, we will not allow another petrochemical facility, LNG facility to come here. No, we will not continue to use single-use plastics even though it's everywhere. How do we show that solidarity? Some of you may have wanted to see a list of things to do on the screen, and Katie and I talked about this earlier, like, recycle, stop using single-use plastics, donate to your local thrift store, don't buy brand new clothes, whatever. There's a whole list of things that people normally put after these type of documentaries, but how many times do we remember that? And also, that list is unable to change once it's in the movie. But if you go to gaslitdoc.com, you can see the fights that are constantly happening. You can connect with the people who are still on the ground. You can find new ways to support, ways you didn't think of that, we couldn't have put in this list. So that's what solidarity is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roberta. Jane, this brings up lots of questions about strategy and tactics and what we do. And you and I have spent a lot of time doing a lot of different kinds of activism and been to jail a lot and so on and so forth. But we're also both now working hard on political campaigning, over the next 70 days as the midterm comes. You've got Jane Pack out there working hard. Talk about the ways that different forms of activism merge to try and get things done in a big way.
First of all, I just want to say one thing. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Oh, it does work. Okay. You talked about, together with Roy Shedda and a lot of the other activists, pressuring the Biden administration, and they created a pause on the exporting of LNG. Remember reading about Trump inviting all the CEOs of the oil companies to Mar-a-Lago? And he said to them, if you give me $1 billion, I'll do away with all the regulations. The one thing that they cared the most about was lifting the Biden pause on the export of LNG. That's right. Because that's where their money is coming from now. And it's all exported. So one of the key things we have to do is persuade governments around the world. They're trying to bring it to Australia, Europe, Africa. Talk to people, if you know them in those countries, to say, stop it, don't let it happen. Because if those countries refuse to bring the LNG in, they'll stop drilling. They're pressuring President Sheinbaum in Mexico right now to set up LNG terminals. I mean, those things you saw along the Gulf of Baja, I don't know, anyway, it's this big body of water called the Bay of California, and it's where 5 species of whales and dolphins, where they breed and where they calve. If it happens, the whales are over. There's a huge campaign happening now in Mexico called Whales or Gas, because you can't have both. So we're going to take this film down there and show it to Sheinbaum and try to stop it. We have to stop the importing of this stuff. It's all exported.
Which, by the way, is the Trump administration. She's
well, they're
not
increasing.
Kidding. Well, I mean, what they're doing at the moment is taking tariffs and telling Asian countries, if you sign up for $750 billion worth of LNG, we'll cut your tariff by 3%, whatever. I mean, it's one way to view the first 2 years of the Trump regime is as a kind of extortion racket on behalf of the liquefied natural gas industry. This is a huge central part of what's been going on in our world the last little while.
So, to combat something like this, you have to do this. We have to work to get foreign countries to not import it. We have to, when we vote, we have to find out if the candidate we're thinking of voting for takes money from the fossil fuel industry. We cannot elect anybody that takes a penny from petrochemical, plastic, fossil fuels. These industries, first of all, the one thing that I really learned going down there was they don't give a fuzzy rat's ass. They don't care about us. They don't care. They're going to kill us all and the planet with them to get rich. They don't care. And they're controlling our government right now. So, we have to stop it. But the thing that really moved me was the local people, how they're fighting back. And they're all fighting in different ways. Sharon Levine in Cancer Alley in St. John Parish, using prayer. Joe and Joy Banner, using historical sites that have to be protected. Everybody is using a different thing, and they're all fighting. And these are people, she's got a whole bunch of kids. She's a single mother. Diane Wilson with the hunger fast.
What about Travis Dardart? This is a guy just to make it clear, this guy left his home in Ile Saint-Jean, which the federal government, this was the first place that the federal government said climate change has reached the point where we're going to evacuate you, pay for your evacuation because your home is underwater. So he moves, he leaves the place where he lived, moves to Cameron Parish, sets up, starts fishing for a few years, and then they build this giant thing literally 50 feet from where he is, this guy is the wandering Jew of, climate era. I mean, it's truly amazing to see.
I can't tell you
how
what it
quickly
feels
it's
like
happening.
to stand there with him. He's got this boat that's been pulled up on the beach that's like an office. And he's deeply Republican. I was worried about how he would, we totally bonded. Standing there in this beautiful estuary, this beautiful grass, and this is where the neotropical birds that fly for thousands of miles, this is where they have to stop and rest for a long time, rest and eat before they take another 1,000 miles. And it's going. So you're there, and beautiful, fragile. It's what prevents erosion of the coastline. And then you look up, and there is, bigger than Manhattan, just this huge monstrosity of a structure that is poisoning everything. It's, there's lights all night long, so birds fly and get killed. It's just, they're taking it away from us. And we have to fight like hell, because this is it seems very niche maybe, LNG, along the coast, what is that?
If they build out all the LNG plants that were on the thing there on the screen, what the industry wants to do, the total greenhouse gas impact of exported American LNG will be larger than all the greenhouse gas emissions from the continent of Europe. Every car, home, and factory from Athens to Helsinki will be producing less climate damage than American exported LNG from the Gulf Coast. This story that you're hearing is one of the 2 or 3 most important stories in the world today. Sorry to interrupt.
You said what was needed.
Can I ask Katie a filmmaking question? One of the things that struck me watching this was that we have these places that are amazingly diverse and beautiful, and as Jane was just describing, filled with life. And then each of the industrial facilities that looks exactly the same. I mean, they're just, you could have shot them in one place and just used the footage over and over again, because there's just, what did you, as you were looking through the camera, did that sort of tell you something about what this is all about?
Yes, absolutely. Some of these places in Louisiana and Texas are stunning and natural, and you look in one direction and you see the Gulf of Mexico, you see all the greenery, and you feel like you're almost on vacation, not filming a documentary about this, and you turn around and suddenly it's Mordor or something, The juxtaposition there is really extreme, and we wanted to try to show that, we can't get inside these facilities. We had to be very careful about how we would even fly drones. So you're allowed to be on public property. You can keep the drone above the roads, but you can't go over them. But we just wanted to kind of give that sense of scale. And, the Permian was probably the place I went to that just didn't feel like I was on the same planet anymore, everything was about the industry. There's so many great moments we couldn't include in the film. One of them was Jane and Sharon Wilson and there went to a museum called the Petroleum Museum. It's incredibly well funded. It's oil and gas propaganda. They've gamified the industry for children. You can decide on these games where you want to drill. You have protesters. What do you want to do? You find at the end how much money you've made. It was wild. There were you can get on a ride to feel seismic testing. It was unbelievable. But I thought about if you grew up here and worked here, of course you're not viewing this the way we are, So yeah, I'm not from this area, so I'm coming in with an outsider's eye for sure. But I found it shocking, and yeah, I would imagine that folks here would too.
Just to repeat, and I don't mean to be, well, I do mean to be a little sermonistic here. Vermont's had a 15-year de facto moratorium on wind turbines because people didn't want to look at them. If we don't want to look at them, someone else gets to look at, breathe, and live with what we just saw. So that's the bottom line for, for the rest of the world. If this is a sacrifice zone, and that's really what it is, we're the ones who benefit from that sacrifice while someone else pays it. End of sermon. Jane, just talk a little bit about, clearly this really hit you hard as you were going. You came to this country, to this part of the country with fresh eyes, not having been there before, or at least not since you were making movies in the 1960s when it was a different place. What did it just feel like to be there?
It felt like the people in charge had just given up on humanity. These companies, they make trillions of dollars in profit, okay? It's the most dangerous work of any work for workers, this specific fracking situation. The woman that was with me with the thermal camera, Sharon Wilson, she goes out there all the time, and she said she's seen workers walking up those stairs on the side of the tank to get to the top of the tank to manually open to let the pressure out so it won't explode by hand. And sometimes they do that, and then the stuff goes, and they drop dead right there. Died like that. And if they don't die, I cannot tell you the suffering. I mean, she has seen multiple cancers and all that kind of thing. And here's the thing. They have the technology that allows, where it's not necessary to open by hand. They can do it mechanically, but they don't. They don't, because a tiny fraction of their profits would be cut into if they spent that small amount of money just to mechanize that so that the workers don't die, and they don't do it. It made me want to fight so much harder. And wind turbines here in Vermont, our Governor Newsom, he's touting himself as a big environmentalist. He has single-handedly killed rooftop solar in California. Okay, don't tell him I said this. But this is how we fight. We embrace the alternative, we spend our money, we get our towns and cities to do the alternative so that we don't need this, and then we fight like hell to get people elected to office, because that's how we get power, is getting people elected who are going to say, not on our watch, And I'm gonna, I don't have that much time left, but I'm gonna spend whatever time I have left to try to stop this shit. It just makes me so mad. And they're running everything.
So Rosetta, we took a big loss when Trump came in, and I mean that was the very first thing I thought of when I watched the election returns on that night. I thought of Lake Charles and CP2 and this fight we've lost now. How do you keep your spirits up and the spirits of your community up and fighting? What's up with the Vessel Project these days, and what are you all doing?
Yeah, so the Vessel Project of Louisiana is my small mutual aid environmental justice organization, and I've always fought differently anyway from the beginning. One thing I've said is that if they continuously put on these applications that our communities are low income, low resource, need economic growth, need jobs, then why don't we provide those things for the community so that they can check that as a box on their application? And so with the Vessel Project, what I do is I assist people with paying their bills, with getting food on the table, with childcare, with, you know, finding jobs outside of industry, because that's one of the things that they like to say, right? This industry is coming here because you need jobs. We're going to give jobs. So helping people to find jobs that are not in the industry, helping folks to get, you know, their basic needs met so that they can reach that level of self-actualization to be present enough to understand what's happening in the community. Because these community members have their individual fires they're trying to put out. They're trying to figure out, what am I going to feed my children tonight? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay this astronomical energy bill? Because our light bills in Louisiana are through the roof. I just had 10 people last Monday send light bills of $800 for the months of June and July because it's so hot, they're trying to cool their homes. And on top of that, insurance is going up because we live in communities that are surrounded by industry that pollutes the air. That air pollution leads to climate-induced disasters such as floods and hurricanes and freezes or whatever. And because of that, we pay a higher insurance. Our communities are, you know, we have the flood rate that we have to pay for living in these communities. Areas that were not flood zones that are now deemed flood zones. Who's taking care of us when these things happen? It's not FEMA. Our communities don't get FEMA assistance as quickly as wealthier, whiter communities or communities that are homeowners. So that's what Vessel Project does. We ensure that folks are taken care of. And I want to be very clear that every single person that you saw in this documentary, these are single people or two people organizations. These are not big organizations.
What's the URL for Vessel? Where do you
Vessel
go to?
Project.
Vessel Project.
Vessel Project of Louisiana.org.
Vessel Project.
Vessel, like a vessel.
We, among other things, those of you who are part of Third Act, we've done our best to get some solar panels up on the roof there at the Vessel Project.
Yes, we have some, and we have also some solar panels that we allow community members to be able to connect to after these disasters, thanks to Third Act and other organizations.
I'm getting the sign that it's time for us to start closing down. So Jane, I want to give you the last word, but you know, we've been talking about this. Let's try to end on a upbeat note. The other thing that's changed in the 5 years, this movie's been about 4 or 5 years in the making. The other thing that's changed in that time is that in the rest of the world, all of a sudden, clean energy has taken off like a shot. All of a sudden, if you, and by the way, though we've been disparaging his name, it's possible that Donald Trump may turn out to have been the greatest EV salesman of all time. Across the planet, people are suddenly realizing that though sunlight travels 93 million miles to reach the Earth, none of those miles go through the Strait of Hormuz. So Jane, give us just in case we're a little overwhelmed, give us a little pep talk to send us out.
I travel like you do, and like you, things are shifting all over the country. You know, and it's bipartisan. What is so great is that a lot of people who voted for Trump are saying, not in my town, you're not going to put up a detention center. It's been impossible for the Trump administration to build new detention centers because Republicans and Democrats are standing there saying, no, data centers. Trump and data centers are the best thing that has happened to the potential of what's going to happen. People are standing up and fighting back. It's shifting. It's shifting. And it's across the board. And so we have to be, I feel like I'm talking to the choir. Probably you're all organized by him.
The choir needs to, be singing out the same hymn sheet. Jane,
Yeah, no, we have to lock arms because he's going to try. We're going to win, and because the many have been beating the money in primary after primary this year. We have to lock arms, and if he tries to take it away from us, with nonviolence and a great deal of love, we have to rise up.
Amen.
And if we do it in enough numbers, we're going to win.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
and
you.
Jay, thank you.